Hey guys, welcome back to Fur Friday, and today we're going to be drawing part of a husky. So as you've probably noticed if you've been following the series for a while now, Fur Friday doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be encountering fur. So last week we looked at doing snakes and snake scales, and today we're going back to fur and we're looking at doing a particular section of this husky that's coming up. Thank you to Kerry Neal, who actually gave us a few photos to work from, so you'll see her name probably pop up a couple of times through the Fur Fridays. She has some amazing beautiful dogs. And this one is one of a pair of huskies, I believe, but I liked the particular blend out from the white area into the grey area, so I thought that'd be good for our little tutorial. You are going to need something a bit extra in this one. Though it is in a couple of the previous ones, but I've never really shown you how I use it on these particular little patches, so that's what we're going to do today. So you'll see that I've only taped down 3 sides at the moment because we need to go in and use either just get a bit of card that's maybe folded over a couple of times, or paper that's folded a few times. You need something soft underneath, because if you don't, then your valleys won't be deep enough, and you'll see why in a moment. So ideally you need to use a bull tool, and if you've not seen my tutorial on the indentation method, it is worth having a watch at some point. But I prefer to use these little ball tools. These little ball tools here, and you can get them from the pound shop, and you get like 4 in a pack, so you get 8 sizes in total because each end has a different size. And when you use these types of tools, it means that there's no damage done to the paper and there's no scratching or just damage to the paper. So this method, I'm going to show you how to do this type of fur. We are going to use the indentation method when it comes from this patch of white fur here up to the ear, and you'll see in the reference photos that I've popped up what I mean. You don't have to put a load of pressure on, and you still need to have them going in different directions. You need a few more of them as you come towards where the white section is, but don't go crazy because you can't undo this. You can sort of go in and darken the crevices if need be, but it's easier to add a few more in later on, either with your eraser or maybe even your slice tool or your scalpel. So don't go too heavy, but just get enough in there that it helps when it comes to colouring over. And visually you're going to find this really hard to see, but I'll tilt the paper up if I can in a minute just so you can see what I have done. So I'm just pushing gently, and I've curved some fur lines, I've crossed over some fur lines, so they're not exactly all in a nice neat row. So I'm just going to see if it's possible. It's not, so you'll see it as I colour over it anyway, so you'll see it all appear. So I've just put the last piece of tape down the side here, it just helps me keep the zone nice and clear for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to very lightly go over with, I think initially we're going to go over with our cold grey 4. So which is 1V. And then if you, hopefully, you'll see those lines magically appear, but you'll see them become stronger as we darken in our fur strength. But at the moment we're going to be working as our standard light to dark, and we're just going to glaze over everywhere that needs this colour underneath. Now his head sort of comes up here as there is some gapping behind him, because that's the curl of his ear, so this particular bit's the actual background, so we're going to leave that white. So hopefully, yeah, you can see them coming through, and then we've got a little patch here, which is the top of his eye, that we can just pop in there. And what we're going to do while we still have the same colour is this particular white area, we're just going to bring some fur detail in, and I'm not going to leave this white. We're going to probably be coming in with the ivory, and we're going to need some warm grey in there too, as there's a little tiny hint of yellow to the tone, and that we're going to bring that in, sorry, to the colour. So we're going to bring that in with the ivory, and then the grey we're going to use to build up the shadow because it's not flat in that area. So we're just in the direction that you see on your fur. I've mentioned it so many times previously that fur direction is vitally important when you're coming to draw animals, so you have to make sure that that is correct. So now I've done that, I can do the same up here as we have some in the ear. And the only reason I'm doing this now is because we're going into light areas. When I'm working on dark areas, I tend not to put the fur in until much later. But because we're going to need to be working in these areas, it's worth bringing some in now. Okay, so I'm now going to grab my dark indigo. And again, we're going to glaze over the whole lot. And because it's a flat wash of colour, I'm not too worried about the direction in which it goes. As long as I feel that area, but with a nice light pressure, you don't want to go in too heavy. Okay, so that helps us start to build up the undertone. Now I am really tempted to pop, I'm not quite sure, but my eyes are drawn to a different type of colour in that. I'm wondering whether it's actually the warm grey, so I'm going to, let's go in with some dark sepia. In fact, I need to dark sepia, I need to write that one down because I forgot. Dark indigo, oops. And this time I am going to do a very loose, rough up and down motion in the direction in which the fur will fall. And I am being very rough. Stronger ones in there. Just do a bit of crisscrossing while we're at it, just to try and keep the fur in the different directions. And then we want to follow it out so we get that curve. Normally where you come from the ear, it curves across the head towards the eye. It's always tends to go in that direction, and then when you come down to the bottom of the eye, that's where it tends to start to go into the other direction. So again, we're going to cross, and we're going to cross over those indentation marks that we made, because again it gives the illusion that these white furs are under and over. Again, keep an eye on your reference with regards to fur length. So if it's very short hair, you need to keep your pencil motion very short, very stubby. And of course, if it's nice and long, then we need to have long sweeping strokes. I've mentioned in previous series videos that your colours generally won't change from animal to animal unless you have a massive variation in the animal or the colour of the fur that you're drawing, but I guarantee you still end up using a minimum of 50% of the colours that you used in the previous portrait, tutorial or fur. So it's crazy actually how much you end up using the same pencils most of the time. So I'm going to wash over with the ivory on this particular section, and I'm going to drag it up into the ear, and that's to soften the focus of where the fur is, because we're going to go in and strengthen that later. We're just going to blend over the whole lot. Don't worry about it going muddy. And we're going to bring it into our white here as well. Just a nice light covering. Blend some of those edges because we want to have a nice smooth transition when we go from the dark area of the fur into this light area. We have a light section in there. So I'm now going to grab my warm grey 2. Still haven't written that in, so let's write that in now. Warm grey 2, and we're going to blend over the rest of the area that we left last time. So this is sort of working up to burnishing stages, so you're just really blending over the whole lot. And then I can bring that colour down and start building up the shadow that we have on the white patches of the fur. The same up in the ear. We've got some pink tones happening in here, so we need to make them a bit darker in a moment. Around the edges as well, again where the dark meets the light. And then we can even afford to come in darker. So I'm going to grab my dark sepia and very lightly come over the top in this section here. Get that shape correct. Make sure I get all those patches. Then I'm going to come in with, what am I going to go in with? Let's blend it out with the ivory, I think. Just on the edge. And then I want to come in with cold grey 3 and add some colder tone here. That's better. There we go. So while I still have it on in my hand, actually, I'm just going to start drawing some more fair detail in. You're barely going to notice it, but it's going to be enough, because you need your lights, your mediums and your dark when you come into the fur transitions. It doesn't just go from dark to light. So just done around that edge. We're going to do a few more up in that ear. I think for that inner ear We are going to need to bring in, what am I going to need to bring in? I've brought in the light flesh. And that's just to give this section here a warmer tone. Because we're laying it over the previous colours, it doesn't give you that real pink hue you would expect it to. So I've now got my dark sepia. And this is where we can really start adding some detail in now. Don't be afraid to add patches where there are no detail, like on the edge of his ear here. We've got some that go all the way up. We're going to make sure that you can see the motion of that fur changing, going up into the ear and then down and across the head. We've got quite a solid patch around here. Again, we go a bit darker up in this corner here. As I've said, don't be afraid to do washes of colour like this to get the initial dark tones down that you need. It's not a problem to be washing over what you have done, because they don't necessarily all disappear, all the work that you've done underneath. It gives you this much softer, deeper fur texture that you would get if you were just to do standard fur strokes without any sort of colour underneath. So we are quite zoomed in. You can see from the original picture to the square that I have chosen how zoomed in we are. So I'm going to be adding more definition than what you are probably seeing in your reference picture. So that is entirely up to you when you come to do yours, whether or not you want to do that. That's a decision you need to make, but you can see how zoomed in we are, so it gives you an idea of actually how little detail you would expect to see. The reason I choose these patches is because I like to show you as we draw the direction of the fur. I know I keep going on about it, but fur direction is really, really important. So if I can zoom you in to these really nice close-ups, then you get a really good idea about the fur direction, and it gives you an idea in the various sections of an animal in which direction it goes, because it's not always clear when you're working from a photo. So at least doing these gives you an idea that if it's a cat, a dog, when you're working from your ear going towards the top of the eye socket, how that fur then curves. So you've got that knowledge going forward. So we're just gonna keep filling. So you can see how much depth that fur is starting to get now. There's a little bit of change in motion there. I'm just gonna bring some of that detailing in. Now this is where I'm now going to bring in my Payne's Grey. Okay, Payne's Grey, which is a staple in my toolbox and probably one of the most used colours I have. And what this does is it helps cool certain areas down. It gives you, it gives you a depth that you need without having to start looking in your blacks, because a lot of the time it's never actually true black. So we give him some softness on the top of his head. You wouldn't normally see that because it is so far in the distance. But I'm going to blend it out actually with a little bit of cold grey. I'm not going to write this down because it's not an integral part to this particular picture, but it gives you an idea on what you can do just to soften the fur on the top of the head, because that's where the light starts hitting anyway. So okay, let's start getting some of the other bits of fur detail in. Okay, we want a few dark going into this area, but we don't want masses because, as I say, we want that smooth transition. Put a little bit of pressure on in some areas now. Just 1 to help blend and 2 to get some of that darker colour down. Okay, what I want to do is I want to give this bit more of a blend out, because for me I'm seeing more paper than I would like to, and if you followed me for some time, pushed a bit too hard there, you're aware that I'm not keen on seeing paper through the drawing. So I'm now using my cold grey 3 just to blend that lighter section out a bit. In fact, I am going to blend over here too. But you can see how well the indentation has worked to give you some nice light fur areas without you having to painstakingly come in afterwards and either try and remove that with an eraser, a slice tool, or even try and leave it as negative space. So it takes a lot of the hard time. I don't know what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean. It's just a tool us artists use to make the process move on a bit quicker, and personally for me I think it does give you an added realism. There, see how much difference that's made now we've blended it, and even down here it's really starting to look lovely in 3D. I think we can afford to actually go darker in here, so I'm going to bring in my Caput Mortem. And I'm just going to warm that tone up a bit, not too much because it's not red, it's more on an orange side, but I'm going to bring that red down, and then we're going to come over with a warm grey 2, which takes a bit of that red tone out, and then I'm going to go over with the ivory. I'm going to do a little glazing in some areas, so I'm just going to go lightly over the top. You can still see the pencil marks underneath from that fur, so don't, as I say, please don't worry about ever glazing over the top. You're not going to ruin your work unless you are pressing really, really hard and you're eliminating all those details. Just going to get some extra bit of detailing in here. Looking beautiful and fluffy now. I think we could afford to bring in a couple of longer ones around here. And I'm going to blend those again with the ivory. just on the ends, so it just softens those ends and blends them out into the fur a bit more. Alter that shape as it goes up rather than finishes at a point. And then at this stage you can add all the details in there you want to add or need to add, as your reference will be different to mine, but again this just gives you an idea of placement, fur direction, how to get those highlights without causing yourself a headache. I'm going to glaze over where I think it needs to be darker, and I do believe that we are actually pretty much finished. I mean, these are why I have chosen small sections like this for you, because I want your results to be achievable in a short space of time. That way you are able to get as much practice in as you need to be able to feel confident enough going forward into your own portraits. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you have found this tutorial useful. Thumbs up would be lovely so your friends and family can see as well. And if you know anybody that would benefit from these tutorials, don't hesitate to send them in the direction, get them to subscribe. Don't forget to hit that bell button as well so you get notified of whenever these Fur Fridays go up, as well as when I go live on a Wednesday. So yeah, hopefully you found this good. If there's any particular animal that you really would like me to concentrate on at any stage, pop a comment down below, and if it's not in my series already, I will have a look at adding it in there for you. Yeah, that's all from me. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, whichever it may be, and I shall see you guys on the other side. Bye!